When the year starts to wrap up, a lot of us get this urge to do a sort of personal audit. We pull out a mental spreadsheet. We tally up the wins, the losses, and then we draft this big, serious plan for the next year. But what if that whole way of thinking is just missing the point entirely?
I mean, does this feel familiar to you? That feeling that you're just adding up accomplishments and failures and then judging yourself against these goals you set like a whole year ago? It can feel really cold and impersonal, and honestly, kind of brutal. But the material we're digging into today suggests there's a much more human, a much better way to do this.
So how do we make that shift? How do we get from that column on the left, the harsh discipline and self-criticism, over to the right, to a place of self-compassion? Well, it's not about some magic trick. It's actually about asking ourselves a completely different set of questions. So let's walk through what those are.
Okay, the first question gets right to the heart of it all. What am I still carrying? Notice, it's not about what you did, it's about what you're still holding on to. You know that emotional baggage, those unresolved feelings that have been quietly tagging along all year, just weighing you down?
Next up, we have to deal with that immense pressure to be positive all the time. And we do that by asking a really honest question. Can I be grateful without lying to myself? This is all about finding real, genuine gratitude, even when the year was just plain hard, without pretending the pain wasn't there.
Then we get to challenge our obsession with these super complex plans. We ask, is simplicity stronger than strategy? This one explores the idea that maybe a single guiding theme, I'm talking just one word, could actually be way more powerful than a huge list of resolutions.
Our fourth question is a really interesting one. It gets into the mysterious power of symbolic acts. Why do small rituals change us more than big plans? We're going to look at why a simple, intentional gesture, like, say, burning a letter, can create a much deeper shift inside us than the most detailed spreadsheet ever could.
And all of this, all these questions, they lead us to a final, really foundational one. What if beginning gently is not weakness, but wisdom? This idea completely reframes how we think about change, suggesting that maybe all that pressure we put on ourselves is the very thing that's holding us back.
So let's really dig into that first part, how we can close out the year emotionally so we can find an honest way to move forward. And it all starts with understanding what it is we're actually carrying.
I just love this insight from Brené Brown. It's so true. Emotional weight doesn't always scream at you. A lot of the time it's the opposite. It's this quiet numbness, this feeling of being disconnected. When things that used to make you feel joy or curiosity just don't anymore, that's a huge sign. That armor we put on to be strong, it comes at a price.
And here are some of the really practical signs. That numbness and disconnection we just talked about. Or how about disproportionate irritation, where like a tiny little frustration triggers this massive reaction? Or maybe you see repetitive emotional patterns, or just feel like your thinking has gotten really rigid and stuck. These aren't character flaws, not at all. They're just signals that you're carrying something heavy. And the cost is absolutely real. Just as the philosopher Alain de Botton says, the past leaks into the present. We end up reacting to old wounds instead of what's happening right now. Our ability to trust, to be creative, it all just shrinks because we're walking around in that heavy armor. It ends up asking new people in our lives to pay for old debts they had nothing to do with.
Now this brings us to that really tricky subject of gratitude. I mean, how are you supposed to be grateful for a year that was full of hardship? Well, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl gives us this profound distinction. It's not about being grateful for the pain. It's about finding what you can be grateful for within it. The dignity you held on to, the kindness you showed someone, or just the simple fact that you made it through.
This is the huge difference between real acceptance and something called spiritual bypassing. Bypassing is when you tell yourself or someone else to just be positive or that everything happens for a reason as a way to shut down difficult feelings. But true acceptance, it actually engages with reality. It doesn't rush to some neat and tidy conclusion. It allows sorrow and anger to have some breathing room. And that is what actually lets us move forward for real.
Okay, so if we've let go of some of that weight and found some honest gratitude, how do we approach the new year? James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, just nails the answer here. We think we need these incredibly detailed plans, right? But those rely on motivation, and we all know how unreliable motivation can be. A simple theme, a single word, does something totally different. It helps shape who you are. It becomes a filter for your decisions, not just another thing on your to-do list.
And here's why that's so crucial. Simplicity is resilient. When life gets chaotic and stressful, which, let's be honest, it always does, those complex plans just fall apart. But a single theme, something like presence or courage or connection, that becomes your anchor. It makes daily decisions so much easier because you just have to ask one question: does this align with my theme?
This brings us perfectly to our next section. So, if a simple theme is our guide, how do we actually start? The answer isn't in some massive, overwhelming action. It's in small, symbolic acts and a real commitment to beginning gently.
The brilliant psychologist Carl Jung explains exactly why this works. See, our logical brain understands instructions, but our deeper self, the part that's really driving our behavior, it responds to experiences and to symbols. A ritual isn't about logic. It's about acting out the change you want to see, communicating it directly to your nervous system.
And look, it doesn't have to be some big, complicated thing. It's a really simple 3-step process. First, you set a clear intention. What are you letting go of, or what are you inviting in? Second, you do a simple physical gesture. Write something on a piece of paper and tear it up, light a candle, clear out a cluttered space. And finally, you just take a moment to acknowledge that a shift has happened, that you've crossed a little threshold.
And the absolute key to making any of this tick is gentleness. As Dr. Gabor Mate explains, most New Year's resolutions are fueled by shame, this idea that we're broken and we need to be fixed. Well, our nervous system hears that and interprets it as a threat, so it resists. That resistance we feel, it isn't laziness. It's a deep, biological act of self-protection.
This is exactly why self-compassion is so incredibly powerful. The researcher Kristin Neff has shown that it's the total opposite of indulgence. It's just being honest with yourself without being cruel. And here's the wild part. It actually makes you more accountable. Why? Because when you know that a mistake won't send you into a spiral of beating yourself up, failure becomes survivable. You're so much more willing to get back up and try again.
So, after going through all of these ideas, letting go, finding honest gratitude, embracing these gentle beginnings, what's the one single thing that we should really take away from all this? It's this. This is the core insight that changes absolutely everything. The reason our resolutions fail year after year isn't because we lack willpower or discipline. It's because we're trying to force change from a place of fear and self-criticism. We never create the emotional safety we need to just be honest about where we are, what we're carrying, and what we truly need. And that brings us right back to where we started, with this incredibly powerful question. What if all that force and pressure and harsh discipline that we've been taught to use on ourselves is actually working against us? What if the wisest, strongest, and most effective way to begin is with gentleness? Because in the end, a new year doesn't really require a new you. It just requires a new promise. A promise to stop abandoning yourself every time you stumble, to stop using cruelty as a motivator, and to just treat yourself with the compassion you actually need to grow. And that quiet choice, that might just be the most powerful resolution of all.